Good evening, plebeians. It is March 6, 2015, and you have just stumbled onto RCM On Tap, your 60-ish minute roundtable Well, that was certainly unexpected.
The dogs in the background?
Yeah, that happens. But, we just roll with it around here, because that's just what we do.
That's what happens when you live with other people.
All right, so this is our 60-ish minute roundtable discussion on whatever topics that RCM has on their minds during the given week. For those of you who didn't pick up on who our special guest is this week, Highlander is in the studio with us again tonight.
Greetings, programs.
Welcome again. We appreciate your being here. And joining us, as always, my partners in crime, the ever-popular BiomedAlchemist.
I don't know where that comes from, but hello, everybody.
And Killer McCoy.
Howdy, everyone.
I don't know why the question is up there already, because it's not supposed to be up there at all, but where are they?
We'll just fix it in post.
Well, that wasn't up there earlier, so I must have bumped something on the way in. Whatever. Anyway. So what are we talking about tonight, gentlemen? Well, this week has been all about fun and games. As you can see, I'm wearing my totally awesome zebra onesie in spirit of the evening, because we're going to be talking about toys, hobbies, and when we want to kill that good mood, what our futures are going to be like after the Robot Overlords take over and kill our internets. But before we get that going, cheers, gentlemen, because it has been one heck of a fun week here at RCM. As was noted last night, we are officially a RivalCast show, so congratulations to us. Yay!
Yay!
Yeah.
Let's get this conversation started. So, for our first question tonight, what toy or activity outside of video games was your favorite thing to do when you were growing up? And usually we start with our guests, but, Highlander, since you've been here last week too, we'll spread the wealth around a little bit. Killer, we're going to start with you. What was your favorite toy growing up?
Well, Baroness, considering our talk from last night on TeenSpeak, and it's gonna be the same. I used to play with Legos all the time. I can remember days when we just get out. We had this container, and we would put all the Legos in this blanket, so we just pull the blanket out and dump all the Legos onto the blanket. So we sit in the living room for hours upon hours, just watching a movie or two and just playing with Legos.
See, that sounds like my ideal afternoon right there. I love that.
Yeah. So I would make starships, moon colonies, tanks, vehicles, airplanes, helicopters, anything of that. That's what I did.
Awesome. Sounds like a good old time. We try not to talk about our answers pre-show just because we end up having these amazing conversations and we sit back at the end and go, well, crap, we should have been recording that. So, as Killer mentioned, my favorite was also Legos, and I actually was pulling up a couple of pictures to kind of show you guys what I used to do. Actually, what I still do, because, we talk about what we like to do when we were kids. I never really grew up. I'm totally okay with that. So, just to give you an idea of some of the awesomeness that is what I do now, for my grandmother's 75th birthday, I decided to make a scale model of her house. So, for those of you who are watching the stream right now, and I'll put these pictures up on RivalCastMedia.com, our main website that we run off of. But you can see in the upper corner, that's her actual house, and then the big picture down below, that's what I created for her. So it's a scale model. If you took the roof off, I actually have her living room in there. You can kind of see in the front window the little pink of her pink sofa that she has. And I made little Lego versions of my siblings and myself and my grandmother up in the upper right. So it's just, I love Legos. I love the idea that you start with this pile of just random elements and just turn it into whatever you want. You turn it into something amazing. And then the next day you tear it apart and do something completely different, and you just build off of that. So just going along with that, Killer, like, they've got tons of different, series, and they had the Blacktron when we were growing up, they had the City series, what was your favorite, line of Legos, or did you just randomly pull out the bricks and just do what you wanted?
Usually, I would build whatever set we got. I would build it once, then I would break it down, and I'd just build something else. I don't think I ever rebuilt a single set again after I did it the first time.
Take a picture and then just move on. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, for me, it was more we always had, the nice thing about my parents is they never grew up either, so when we were very small, they started collecting, like, all of the really cool sets that they could find just to hold on to until we were big enough to appreciate them. So, growing up, we had tons of them. Just ridiculous amounts of elements and what have you. And so, I always liked the City stuff, but again, I was kind of like you. I might build it once to the model specs, and then I would tweak. I was very much a tweaker, and my favorite thing was building my own scale models. So, I would start with, like, just build my basic house, and I would make it, like, extremely intricate with, like, the little, like, even when I would build the kitchens, like, the red faucet and the blue faucet would be in the correct spot, and they had to be, and if somebody flipped them, I would, like, flip out because I knew that it had to be. My dad, when I was about 9 years old, he was doing truck driving work, after he got divorced from my mom. And so he would stop at they had a giant Lego store in Chicago, and it was on his route, so he would stop and get, like, some of the fancier bricks. And when I was about 9, he came back with, it was shortly after they had the first wired bricks, so you could actually have, like, the light up pack and route it to the battery and stuff. And I remember every weekend that I was at his house for an entire summer, I was working on this amazing house that had, like, the wires running through it with the little lights that you could actually light up in the different rooms, and patching them up to it's actually the only time I've ever dealt with anything like electrical wires that I haven't set myself on fire or set something on fire or zapped something. It was incredible. Just snap it into place. It was fantastic.
Nice.
I love finding fellow Lego maniacs. I'm sorry, I just get very excited about this. I actually brought, pre-show, I have a couple of my props with me today, and this is the very first Lego guy that was just mine. That's my little Blacktron guy. I know he's kind of hard to see with the light glare, but very, very special Lego person in my life, as I put him gingerly back on the laptop. All right. So, we've got Legos, we've got more Legos, because Legos are awesome.
Exactly.
Bio, what do you have for us?
Actually, I kind of have a mix of things. So, some of the things I really enjoyed were kind of, I didn't have Legos, but I had a Erector set, so it was kind of, metallic pieces that you would kind of screw together and, build things out of. So, a similar concept, but you couldn't, I don't know, if you made a house, it'd be kind of like a prefab looking thing instead of like Legos. Like the image you had up was really good. None of my stuff ever turned out quite like that.
I actually...
no, go ahead.
Oh, I actually have a whole book that I put together from that build, because that particular build that I did for my grandmother actually took 9 months altogether, because I had to get custom elements, I had to find elements, and then customize them myself. So I actually have pictures of, like, when I was dremeling, like, different things down to make it more exact to the house. And
Wow.
There's a picture of me. I have to share it with you guys. I should just post them on the site, but there's actually a picture of me when I was doing the custom paint for the roof, because none of the elements came close to it, and I wanted it to be as close as possible. So I'm actually decked out in, like, the full, like, the safety goggles and the mask and the suit and everything. And the caption underneath it was, remember kids, safety is sexy. So, it's just how I roll. But, I'm sorry, Bio, just...
No, it's fine. The other thing was the period when I kind of had some toys like that. There were some different franchises that started up or came back in one case. So I had Star Wars action figures. I had the Jurassic Park dinosaurs and all all that. So, I mean, I just kind of had a mixture of things. And then the final thing was this, I mean, looking back, it was a crummy one, but a microscope that I had. So that was pretty cool.
Hey, your first microscope is always a big thing because that's...
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, not every kid has it. And second, I mean, when you have something that kind of sparks your interest into something that grows later on, I mean, yeah, okay, it was a toy microscope at the time, but it gave you a start to something that, you know, you really loved later on.
Yep.
So,
true.
I'm feeling it. All right. I actually have a couple of things that I want to mention from some of the listeners, but before we get into that, Highlander, what was your favorite toy or activity when you were growing up?
I had to think about it because, I mean, I did have Legos, but I was never really a Lego person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a bunch of them, but I never really played with them a lot. So I tried to think of something I was really, really into when I was little. And I hearkened back to He-Man. If you guys are familiar with the television show.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite shows growing up because, as my real name is Adam, the main character's name was Adam, who turned into He-Man, so therefore I could identify with the character. And, of course, that was awesome because I didn't know too many other people that had the name Adam. So to have someone that I saw on television every day that would turn into He-Man, well, that's amazing. So what I did was I collected the action figures of He-Man. I had tons of action figures. I try to think of how many altogether. I want to say it was almost triple digits as terms of how many that I actually collected. And looking back, I wish I would have not taken them out of the box and played with them because it would have been worth quite a bit of money. I was actually going through right before the show started, and obviously, as with anything on the internet, there's always something for everyone on the internet, and there is a list of every single action figure that was released in the He-Man, or I should say, the Masters of the Universe, whatever you want to call it, the universe, whatever. And going through them all, I had more than I didn't have. Looking at the entire list, I had to count the ones that I didn't have rather than the ones that I did have. I remember my sister growing up, and she was about 1 or 2 years old, used to call them my guys. They were my guys. And I would have them I literally had them all in it's like a little mini tent. It's very peculiar. When I was growing up,
hey, wake up!
I had a tent over my bed, so it was almost like a sleepover kind of every night kind of thing. But the tent that came with my bed also, for some reason, came with a mini tent, something almost like a backpack. Is the best way I could describe it. I don't know why it came with it. I don't know if it was supposed to be some sort of model that, like, this is how your bed is supposed to look like. But I would just keep all my He-Man action figures in there. I would just kind of toss them all in there. So every once in a while, I'd come into my room and I'd find my sister had gotten in and she had dumped out all my guys all over the floor and were playing with them. So, of course, being the older brother, I'd be very upset about that because they were my toys. They weren't her toys. But it just kind of brings me back because I was going through all the He-Man stuff. Just looking at all that, like, yep, I had that one. I had Skeletor, Beastman. I remember that my favorite one was one called Stinkor. And I'm going to see if I can find where Stinkor is because I'm sure he's on this list. It's got to be S, and yeah, there he is right there. He looks almost like a half skunk, half man kind of hybrid kind of thing. Kind of like if Jeff Goldblum in The Fly threw himself in with a skunk instead of a fly, like that's what would pop out. But he would smell. It was very strange. Like his actual plastic smelled almost like rotten eggs. I don't know what they were thinking when they made that.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's make an action figure that smells horrible because people love that. Who doesn't love that? But apart from that, from a secondary perspective, I collected a lot of Transformers. My cousin, though, was the big Transformers fan. He collected Transformers the way that I collected He-Man action figures. He had all of them, and I mean all of them. His whole room was nothing but Transformers. He collected the comics. He had he had the original Optimus Primes and everything. I'm sure he's kicking himself, too, for not keeping hold of all that stuff. But ironically enough, I've not asked him what he thought of the Michael Bay movies. I assume he's seen them at some point, but like all things, we I grew out of He-Man, he grew out of Transformers, but obviously with the movies coming out, and I just read right now as I was going through that there's going to be a new He-Man movie coming out.
Really?
I believe this. Yeah, let me just look back again as I was looking on.
I vaguely
on
remember seeing something about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me go back here. Origin. Hold on. Yes. Everyone, wait for me while I am going on the internet looking at stuff. I have to say though, in terms of movies, if we're going to talk about like how I talk about Transformers movies, not a fan of the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe movie. I thought it was pretty bad.
Yeah,
Although
that
Frank Langella's performance as Skeletor is, of course, one for the record books. Not in a good way. More like in a bad way. More in a bad way. All right, let me just see here. Let me go down to the bottom. Masters of the Universe. I know I just saw something. Right there. Films. All right. Well, maybe I'm full of it, but I swore I saw something that there was going to be a new movie coming out. Now, I don't know if it's going to be necessarily... I heard something.
Yeah, check your... I just posted a link in the TeamSpeak. Is that what you're talking about? It's from AV Club.
Okay. Let's take a look.
Probably.
The AV Club. Here's a picture of Battle Cat from the new He-Man movie, which is apparently still happening. I don't know if this is a new picture because that looks like the original Filmation from 1983.
It's keep going down. There's a Twitter picture.
Oh, go down. Oh, there we go. I think that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I'll post it in the chat.
So apparently it's in development hell right now. So they're waiting for Sony to get in sync in trying to get the Masters of the Universe movie made. Well, I hope they do. I will definitely go see it. I mean, they're making everything else. I certainly don't see why a Masters of the Universe movie couldn't necessarily work. I remember the point in which I realized that I had started to grow up because the original He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon came out between like 83, 85, and that was my formative years. So that was when I really, really liked it. And then I remember in 1990 they came out with a new one called The New Adventures of He-Man, and I watched it and I realized, wow, this sucks so bad. The whole premise was that He-Man, well, the whole premise actually was that Skeletor leaves Eternia and goes to like another part of space. I don't know if it's another dimension or another part of space or whatever. I don't really remember. And He-Man decides to follow him because, Skeletor's evil and, we got to stop him. And basically the only two original characters from the Masters of the Universe were He-Man and Skeletor. And it was drawn completely different. He-Man didn't have the long kind of mullet hair. He had like a short, almost like he was in the military, almost like Guile from Street Fighter kind of thing. And he had like a spacey kind of sword and that kind of stuff. And then Skeletor wasn't even in charge of the bad guys. He was like the second in command, kind of like Cobra Commander with Serpentor from G.I. Joe. So he wasn't even the guy in charge, and the animation was different, and it was just all new people, and I didn't like it. And that was when I realized, wow, I'm starting to get kind of older because I don't necessarily like this kind of thing anymore. So that's my downer end of the story right there.
To be fair, though, I remember when they tried to reboot the Care Bears in the mid-90s, and I had a similar reaction because, growing up in the 80s, I loved the Care Bears. My favorite doll was a Care Bear. We had all the Care Bear cousins, whatever. And then they tried to kind of push like I don't even know how to describe it. I hated them. I just hated them. Like, they came out right before Christmas one year in like the mid-90s, and it was like they had Recycle Bear and like all these ridiculous things, and I guess I get where they were going. I mean, those were big topic issues back then, but they changed their faces and everything. It didn't feel like what we grew up and fell in love with.
Now in that same genre of quote unquote girl toys, were you a fan of My Little Pony growing up? And if
See,
so,
I was not. My cousin was
okay.
huge on My Little Pony. I had a couple of them, but I mean, Baron tells a fantastic story about when they were growing up. He would use his sister's My Little Ponies as cavalry for, his G.I. Joes and Ninja Turtles. And that's pretty much what we used ours for, too, is, we didn't really play with them so much as, they were just there, and so we used them as horses when needed.
Okay. Have you watched the new television series? Are
Yes,
you a fan? Not a fan?
I have a 2-year-old niece, or excuse me, no, she's not 2 anymore. She's almost 4. That's scary. She's obsessed with it. Yeah, they really do. She's a handful. I love her to death, but wow. But yeah, she's so I'm very well versed in the new My Little Pony, and I do kind of enjoy that, just because when you watch a cartoon as an adult, you get a completely different experience than what you do when you watch the same cartoon at like her age. because she's watching it for like, oh, there's little ponies and they're friends and they're going on these adventures. We're watching it and like, wow, they got away with putting that in the writing script because that was amazing.
It reminds me of. Do you remember the old ABC show Dinosaurs?
Mm-hmm. Oh my
God!
God.
Kind of audio animatronic
So
kind of thing
freaky.
in
So
like a
freaky.
costume kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They made. I don't know why this particular scene sticks out in my mind, but it always did. I always got a kick out of it, and it pertains to what you're talking about. The dad. Was his name Earl? I forget his name, but the main
Yeah.
character
Not
was
Mama.
the flannel.
He's like Carl Winslow.
He's very much like Carl Winslow or like Peter Griffin. That kind of character.
Yeah, just every dad.
It's a trope, like everything
Yeah.
on television. It's always a trope. But anyway, he's watching a cartoon with the little baby, and it's like just like a brief 5-second scene.
Oh, those are the best ones.
It's the scene where they're all sock puppets,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this pair of pantyhose that's in there, and they're being everything, and they have like kind of trashy hair. They have cigarettes hanging out, and the one sock is like, "Get these pair of hose out of here," and then exactly, and then Earl says, "Wow, these cartoons are working on multiple levels here. It's amazing." It's just one of those things. That's a great joke.
Really?
And it illustrates your
wow.
point. I don't know why they just popped into my head.
Oh wait, Bio's our HR person, so he has to talk to you after the show now.
Oh god.
Whatever.
I just remember from Dinosaurs how the series ended. It was so dark. You know what?
Do you remember the ending? The ending is very dark.
And that's what I mean. I remember the ending was
Yes.
very dark. It was like,
Very,
they
very
actually
dark.
did that?
The ending is basically they destroy the Earth and launch the Ice Age, and everyone dies.
yeah.
Yeah.
So sad.
It starts off like a snowball effect. No pun intended. I'm trying to remember exactly what the point of it is. It's like there's some sort of like insect that's everyone hates,
yeah.
so they decide to cut all the trees down to get rid of the insects, and now they can't eat anything, so they decide to. And the culmination is they basically put like explosions and everything like in the volcanoes to like blow
Make
up all
rain.
the volcanoes because it's supposed to release. I think it's
The
supposed to
clouds.
release like all the spores and everything, so that everything will be repopulated. But instead, it causes an ice age, and it's just that like the ending scene is like the family all huddled together in their cave house, figuring eventually it's got to stop sooner or later. But you obviously realize that everybody's going to die. It ends on a real downer.
We went and rewatched the whole series last fall just because, we get onto these kicks. And I remember that too. It's just like, why would they do that? But then that whole
Never
season
understood.
just kind of took... I mean, they were trying to be a lot more serious, I think, than necessarily translated well when you're talking about giant puppets of dinosaurs. But
Yeah, I don't know if they were puppets or if they were just like giant rubber suits.
I think they were
Yeah,
rubber
I think
they were
suits.
rubber
I think
yeah,
they're
they were
rubber
rubber
suits.
suits.
Pretty
But
sure.
But what wasn't it? Was it a Jim Henson production?
yes, it was.
It was?
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm guessing it was rubber suits, and then the puppeteering would be like, kind of like how they work Big Bird, like the arm is the face kind of thing.
Mm.
I hope I didn't ruin it for the rest of you. I realize that's actually how Big Bird works.
Spoilers!
Wait, you
The
mean
person
the
sees out of the
dinosaurs
middle
weren't real?
and like he holds his hand up top
just
and he
ruined
makes the mouth
Bio.
move. I know.
He's going to cry for the rest of the evening. I hope you know that we have to deal with this afterwards. See what you've done.
Well, some people got to grow up now. Life happens.
All right, so we've got some really cool answers for this question, and actually, when we pose these questions out to the community at large, and if you're not following us on Facebook or Twitter, you are wrong. Shame on you. Go and take care of that right now. Facebook.com/RivalCast or on Twitter @RivalCastMedia, where we do post the questions for our upcoming shows throughout the week so that you guys can participate in them as well. And so the answers that I got, Lyserg posted in, his favorite toy growing up was or activity, I should say, was building Gundam models. So that was kind of an interesting thing.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I still do that. So
I remember Killer was very excited about that when I mentioned it last night too. And then,
No, continue. I'm sorry. I stopped your train. Continue.
It sounded more like the person's name was Ant. Like how you were leading that up. And then Ant said she preferred murdering hobos down at the dockyards.
Exactly.
Such a relief.
we're not supposed to talk about that. Shh.
Hey, I'm the guest. I'll talk about what I want to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Stephen AD, I really like this answer. His answer was, my favorite activity was counting matchsticks and then placing them in perfect alignment within my special matchstick drawer.
And then he goes out and murders a hobo.
To each their own. But
Whose
if
name-
anyone, for those of you who have seen my kitchen, I can relate to that. So thank
That
you,
is some
community.
OCD hobby right there.
Thank you, community, for joining in. Lyserg is saying, wait a minute. I don't know why I bother looking at chat while
I wouldn't.
just... All right, so moving along to our main topic of the evening. So we know a little bit more about, what we played with growing up, what really resonated with us as we grew up. What's one hobby you always wanted to get into but never got the chance, and how come you never followed up on it? I don't remember who I started with, so Highlander,
You started.
we'll go with you.
Okay. I have two.
Okay.
One
Hey, wake
legit,
up.
one maybe say tongue-in-cheek, and it's going to be pretty obvious which one is which one. Urban exploration is one of them. I always find myself kind of every once in a while going on YouTube or going on different websites and looking at pictures. If you're unfamiliar, urban exploration, it's you go and you go through, say, abandoned subway tunnels or ruins of buildings, components
urban
of
exploration,
human-made
I think.
environments that you don't normally see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like urban spelunking or whatever you want to call it. So you kind of go through places you're not supposed to go, and that's of course part of the thrill of it. is
Yeah.
being in a place that you're not really supposed to be, but you're there anyway, and look at us, breaking the law, that kind of thing. I've
It is a
gone
lot
on
of
many
fun.
websites and looked at many different people. They go through abandoned prisons, and there's even one. Me being a big Disney nerd, many of you might not be familiar, but there's 2 water parks at Disney, but there used to be 3. Way back in the day, Disney actually opened one of the very first water parks ever, called River Country, and it was sort of like an old swimming hole, kind of Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer sort of theme thing. And it was opened right up until 9/11, and it closed in like 2002, I think. They claimed it was because there wasn't enough business to justify running it. It's actually because they actually used part of the water from the natural water that they have built onto there called Bay Lake, and Bay Lake is full of amoebas and other things, bacteria and things.
Wow.
So if you had a cut and you were in there, it's not good. So that was sort of their rationale of, well, it's time to close it down. But it's still there. I mean, they didn't just tear it all down. They just sort of picked up and left. And there's more than one group, not many, obviously, because it's not something that's easily gotten to, but several groups have actually gotten in there and wandered around and took pictures and everything. The eeriest thing of all of it is if you've ever been to Disney or if you've ever been to any theme park or amusement park, you know that there's always background music everywhere you go that kind of fits with the theme of where you are, that kind of thing. Well, all the background music of everywhere, it's essentially all centrally located. It's not like, it's not like the Magic Kingdom has its own music part and everything like that. It's basically all run from one central location. So there are some YouTube videos out there of people wandering around the old abandoned water park with faint music playing in the background of,
Wow.
picture, whatever you would think, like, banjo kind of, frontier Western sort of theme. So it is a little bit creepy. And that is part of it also. Part of it is also a little bit creepy too, because you're in places where no one, really there aren't too many people. Things are run down, things are old. I don't necessarily believe in the supernatural, unlike, some other people. And if you do, that's fine. But I know that a lot of people that are into that kind of thing also, there's sort of an overlap between those two communities. People that seek out the, old abandoned places that are supposed to be haunted versus the people that explore the old abandoned places just to sort of, say that they were there. That's one thing that I've always wanted to get into. I just don't have the time really to do it. But if I did have time on my hands, that would be something I would do. I'd travel around and, sort of see all the old crumbling things that, people aren't supposed to go to. The other one that I thought has always been interesting, it's called several different things, but the main name for it is called extreme ironing.
Oh God.
It's a sport, sort of a hybrid sport performance art. It's exactly what it sounds like. You go to remote locations, extreme situations, and you iron stuff. Ah, okay. Well, I guess
I've
We're
got
just
nothing
everyone's
for that one.
flabbergasted by that. I was flabbergasted when I first heard of it too. It started back in 1997, and there's pictures of people in different YouTube videos, people with ironing boards and ironing on remote locations like way out in the desert. People ironing things while skydiving. It's a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. People ironing while they're skiing or snowboarding or going kayaking, things like that. Even there's even people that have tried to iron underwater as well. I just find it so ironic. It's just so strange. There's even a world championship as well. A world championship of extreme ironing.
Of course, there has to be. I mean,
Yes,
why
there is.
else?
Yes.
Why
There were
wouldn't you?
different there were different sections you could do. Urban, so like ironing around, like say like a broken down car. There was like a water competition where you had to sort of like you had to iron while on a surfboard or like on a canoe. There was a forest section where you had to iron from the top of a tree. And then there was like a rock section where you had to, it was like a purpose-built sort of climbing wall, one of those climbing walls. So you had to climb while ironing a t-shirt at the same time. And then there was a freestyle section which had a whole bunch of crazy people. It's just sort of an anything goes kind of thing. Ironically enough, I shouldn't say ironically enough, but unfortunately there was no United States extreme ironing team. I was very disappointed to see that.
Well, Highlander, that just sounds like an opportunity in the making right there.
It does.
You could be
indeed,
their
yes.
captain.
I could.
You could-
But
you
once
could
again,
merge
I
the
had not
two.
enough time in the day.
Ugh.
But I remember seeing extreme ironing. I was like, that sounds amazing. And I looked at it, and it definitely does look amazing. So those are the two things that I have always wanted to do. Never really had the chance to. I don't know if I ever will. I mean, extreme ironing, I doubt I ever will. The urban exploration, it's something that I still would love to do. It just comes down to enough time in the day. Because for something like that, you usually have to do it, late at night, overnight kind of thing.
Well, it
and
depends.
so,
I shouldn't admit to this, but you know what? The statute of limitations is over, and we were actually given okay to do it before we went down there. But
well, see, that's the whole idea. The whole idea of like urban spelunking is that you're not supposed to get the okay to do it.
Well, we're not.
You kind of sneak in.
It was kind of sort of like we weren't supposed to, but she knew we were doing it and kind of looked the other way, wink, wink. Because she used to do it when she was in college too. And it was at Penn State at the main campus, they have a series of tunnels that connect all of the buildings underneath. And they were originally designed for like maintenance things because when Penn State was built, it was an agricultural college. So they had like the different barns and the different buildings where they did these different, agriculture experiments and the cattle and everything. So it was really meant for like in extreme weather, you could still get to the different buildings and take care of the animals and make sure that the experiments were going well and so forth and so on. And then, as the university progressed, they used it for like, moving supplies and, if they were shuttling, sensitive equipment between like the engineering building and the science building, they would use it for that. But they aren't generally used anymore, but it's kind of neat down there. It's like just this little maze. It's not well lit, and you really need somebody who has been there before if you don't want to get lost. But just the ambience of it was just very, very cool. So that was our little exploration too. But all right, so those are some pretty cool things. You might even be able to combine the two at some point, do extreme ironing in an urban exploration type environment.
Oh, don't tempt me, man.
Just saying.
Don't tempt me.
I mean, if you're going to be the captain of the U.S. extreme ironing team, you got to do some leadership stuff there.
This
All
is
right.
true.
Killer, what do you have for us?
Well, I was into this hobby, but eventually I kind of stopped doing it, as I used to do model airplanes, the replicas, or tanks. I had a couple of tanks, and I think I had one or two ships, but I always enjoyed doing the model airplanes. I forgot, at the time I had maybe about 10, 12 of them. I was so into it though at the time when I was a kid. My parents when I had my own room, they actually built a shelf around my entire room near the ceiling where I could put my models.
Nice.
And my brother was also into doing models, but he was more into doing the Star Trek models, and I think he had one or two. I mean, I think he had the Enterprise D, B. Oh, we had a lot of them, but I just stopped doing it, and now I'll admit I wasn't very good. I never really painted them or put the decals on them, and sometimes there would be gaps because the glue didn't hold the pieces together very well, or the plastic had gotten warped somehow because I didn't store it correctly because we just didn't have room. But I wish I could do it now, but the problem, I don't have the time, and I really don't have the space to. I could make the space to do it, but I wouldn't have the space to put them anywhere. I'm out of space now. So that's kind of a thing I wish I could do again, is do the models and actually do it for real and go the minutia of every model.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it takes a lot of time and a lot of very
patience.
Precise. Yeah, that's one of the things that I never really got into because I mean, I'm not a very patient person, you know this. So when I'm looking at these little teeny tiny little things and trying to paint it just right, and then the cat's running in and meowing, and it's like, okay, well now I have to redo that whole thing because there's a little paint strip. It's like, no. So, but yeah, I mean, it's, if you have the time, if you have the patience, if you have the space for it, like you said, can be a very worthwhile endeavor. And the stuff that they come up with for some of these models are just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
These little teeny tiny versions of it. So very cool. So, Bio, what is one thing that you've always wanted to get into but never have, and how come?
I honestly couldn't think of anything, and it's because I typically get into those, just kind of start them out a bit, get a feel for it. Like I've done model making and stuff, and it's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, Killer's right. It definitely takes a lot of. For one, you have to get all the components. There are different tools. Some of them are really inexpensive, like a file to kind of smooth down some edges or get rid of some of the stuff that's there, and paints. You have to get all the different types of paints. The ones I built were from Japan, so I also had to translate the paint before before actually getting it. So yeah, there was one that just puzzled the heck out of me, and it turned out to be the bottom. It was a red color, but it was supposed to be the bottom coating of a ship, because they don't necessarily paint it the same color, because it's it's going to have algae and stuff on it. And so so that was the one that took a while. So I guess one thing I really wish, thinking of that, is I wish I'd gotten into a little bit more language study, because I actually took a semester of linguistics in college, and it was really interesting, but just the length of time that I felt like it kind of took, I just never picked it up. And every once in a while I'll go and study a new alphabet or something, but just like Killer said, the amount of time it takes to kind of get invested, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. I've always wanted to learn Esperanto. Are you familiar with that one?
I've not. What tree is that in?
It would be European, I suppose. Esperanto is there's a term for it, but it's a made-up language. It's the world's most used artificial language, I suppose.
Okay.
Huh. It was created in 1880, blah blah blah, or something like that. The premise is that would be like a universal auxiliary language, not meant to replace any languages, but the idea being that since it was artificially created, it would be neutral. So let's say, for example, someone here in America and then someone in Japan. Well, there's no bias in terms of the Japanese person has to learn English or the American has to learn Japanese. So there's no sort of well, I have to learn your language. Well, no, you have to learn my language. So the idea being is that if you were in America, you'd learn English, and then you'd also learn Esperanto. And then if you lived in Japan, you'd learn Japanese, and you'd also learn Esperanto. So the idea being is that if you met someone from another culture, you don't have to learn their language, you don't have to learn yours, but you both speak Esperanto, so that way you could communicate with one another.
So like a trade language in a way.
Yeah,
kind of.
Like
kind of. Yeah, it's spoken by about 2 million people, from what I've read.
Huh.
It's supposed to be actually a very easy language to learn. And actually, there have been studies that said that if you learn Esperanto first, learning another language after that becomes much, much easier. So I know that a lot of people choose to learn Esperanto as a way to bridge toward learning a lot of different languages if you want to be that kind of person. Yeah.
Interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So
Jen,
let's.
Baroness, before I have to ask Bio one question before
Of course.
Bio, with your models you made, did you ever play with them?
No, not. I mean,
Come on, admit it.
I know
admit
where
it.
the
No,
question
you did.
came from too.
Well, let me
I
answer
wouldn't
the
say there was any
question.
play involved, sir.
Let me answer the question. No, so back, I got a whole stack. So when Gundam Wing released in the U.S., I was in crap. I don't remember what grade. Anyway, I was in junior high, and I did kind of mess with them a little bit. But I had gotten that was pretty much the year that pretty much every present I got was it was the high grade, which is actually not high grade at all.
Oh,
it's
really?
the lower grade of all the models out there for those of you who build Gundam models. So yeah, I got a whole stack of Gundam Wing related high grade models, and of course that was all that was available in America, and certainly the more affordable ones. Because yeah, you get to master grade and perfect grade, you're shelling out $50 to like $200, and that's,
Oh, yeah.
you know, some of them go up even higher for the really large ones.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I did a little bit, but not as much. It was more put them together, kind of put them in a pose and set them out, kind of thing.
I had to ask because me and my brother we would play with our models. We had an entire little universe just built around playing with our models. It was hilarious.
All right. So before I give you guys my answer to that question, I wanted to pull into chat because they've got some good stuff going on. So Dia Olive says, things that I collected and never played with as a child includes Pokemon cards and Warhammer figures, which resonates with me because sitting just across the room as I was staring at it while you guys were talking about model building earlier is the Warhammer set that I went through hell to find for Baron for Christmas, and it's still sitting there in a shrink wrap because we haven't put
really?
it together yet. So,
Really?
yeah. So there's that, and Nose Hair UK, hello, says, one hobby I wanted to do but never found time to do is appearing in the background on TV news reports.
Jesus.
I've actually heard of that. There are actually people
Again,
who do that.
I've inadvertently done that a couple of times, but then I had a friend who, well, he still works for one of the news outlets up in New York City now, but when he was back in our hometown and he was doing news reports for our local WKYC, that's not WKYC, anyway, our local news affiliate back in my hometown, we would end up running into each other like at the weirdest possible moments because he would be like trying to film like a 30-second spot for a newscast that night, just needs a random person and can't find anybody, and then I just magically pop up. So I've been on the news several times for really ridiculous reasons.
Amazing.
I may have been staged doing grocery shopping before for items that I wasn't actually grocery shopping for, just because I happened to be at the right place and when he needed somebody. So Roush, if you're watching, anytime,
really
buddy,
odd.
anytime. It's just it's kind of like the biocomplex that you and I were talking about, where you just the way that you just find yourself in situations where people assume you're supposed to be there, except
It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, for me it kicks it up a little notch because it's usually like they need something specific and they're like, oh, I know you and I know you can help out, so let's do this. So anyway. So for mine, when I was growing up, and I too am a dabbler, I have a wide variety of interests, and like you guys said, there's just not enough time in the day to become a master at absolutely everything. So you kind of gotta, if you want to be well-rounded, you kind of pick and choose, try some things out, if it's good, then, awesome, you can latch onto it for a little while, and if you don't care for it, well, you tried it at least. But one of the things I've always kind of regretted is when I was growing up, I always wanted to learn an instrument. And it started off, I really love the trumpet. I have a beautiful trumpet up in the closet upstairs. It started off that I wanted to learn trumpet. My mom didn't want me to learn trumpet because they're loud, they're brassy, it takes a lot of practice, and she really just didn't want to hear it. So I ended up taking flute lessons for a year, and it was all right, but it wasn't really. I wasn't getting the practice time that I needed, and when I was practicing, I wasn't getting the support that I needed from the other people in my household. So it just made it kind of difficult, and I wouldn't say I lost interest, but I lost the drive to just keep at it like I should have. And that's sort of been a common theme throughout my childhood. I would try different things. I mentioned I got the trumpet eventually. I tried teaching myself. I loved it, and just anytime you picked it up, though, if everyone's yelling and complaining, it's like, well, what's your incentive to keep going? So the one instrument that I really, really wanted to learn was the violin. It's a gorgeous instrument. It's a difficult instrument to learn just because of how absolutely delicate it is. I mean, the tuning of it, you have to continually just be tweaking it and making sure that the strings as you're playing aren't moving the way that they're not supposed to move and what have you. And we never had the opportunity to actually do that. I mean, violins are kind of expensive. At the place that we lived, there weren't lessons for that we could afford. So it's like, well, it kind of went on the wayside. And so, Baron knew about this. We talked about this throughout the years. And for Christmas one year, the first Christmas we were married, actually, he got me a starter violin and the books and everything. He's like, we live in a big city. If you want to take lessons, fine. I will pay for them. You can do this. But then sadly enough, it is still sitting up in our guest room upstairs now. I get it out from time to time. I play with it a little bit. I can do the bowing properly. I've gone through the little tutorial videos that came with it, and it's nice, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, I need to have someone actually show me how to tune it properly, to position it properly, to do all the little nuances that you need if you want to actually be good at it. And unfortunately, the way that our schedules work, time is always of the essence, and unfortunately, just not meshing up with that. So
I'm sensing a thing that time is a mess.
I'm sensing that we need to start buying those stupid lottery tickets so we can live on the island and have a lot more time to do these things that we want to do.
Yeah, I tell you what, yeah.
So
that's what happens when when you get older. That's why you stop doing all those hobbies, because you have to have a job.
So
because you have to have money. So
college
that cuts
kids
into your hobby time.
College kids, if you're paying attention, and you should be, cherish this time now. If you have things that you want to do, do it. Believe me, I realize that you're writing papers and you're getting ready for midterms, but you know what? Spring break's coming up next week. Figure out what it is that you want to do and latch onto it early. Give yourself the time to cultivate that, because trust me, when you hit, I won't say how old we are, but when you hit our age and you're having these conversations with your friends around the bar and going, why didn't I do this earlier? You'll think back to this conversation and go, damn, we should have listened.
I don't quite agree. I think a better piece of advice would be to find a way to get paid for doing your hobby. Because if you could do that, you get the best of both worlds.
True.
Yes. That's the advice I would give, is if you really love your hobby, find a way to do it and get paid. Because then you can do your hobby all the time and still be able to pay your bills.
True. But to that same point...
This is why I urge Killer to become a pro model maker.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa,
no,
wait,
seriously,
hold on.
Japan, I mean, if you see they'll take the kit and they'll just make it look absolutely amazing.
There are pro model makers. You go to Hollywood. I mean,
they
look
exist.
at,
Okay.
any kind of miniature sets and things like that.
No,
that's
he's
what
not
that
talking model. He's model maker.
I was
He
like,
heard
wait,
Hollywood.
model?
and
You want
he's
me to be
like,
a model? Like what?
No.
Go
I'm
down the
talking
catwalk?
about people that make.
I
make
know.
models.
I was just.
Yeah, I mean,
I just had that mental
somebody
image.
made the Death Star trench out of ship model parts.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Things like that. Look at all the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. I mean, there is CGI, but a lot of it is miniature making, and that's model making. So,
But the point being, don't sit around and just wish that you would have done something. Just go out and make it a point to go out and try it. And if you can get paid for it and just make it your hobby or make your hobby into your career, then by all means that you'll have a much more fulfilled life than sitting around in cubicles and yelling at people about percentages all day. Trust me. It's just, all right.
Wow, I sense some bitterness in that one.
No
I know,
bitterness.
yeah, so do I.
No
Yeah.
bitterness there. No bitterness there. All right. So,
Last
I'm going
question.
to ignore Olive altogether. So our last question, our off topic for tonight, and I'm actually going to start off because Lyserg sent in a pretty decent. Actually, no. You know what? I'm gonna wait on Lyserg's comment until the very end because it did make me laugh. But our off topic for tonight: what would you do for fun if you had to give up TV and electronic games? So let that sink in for a minute. What would you do for fun? So the Robot Overlords have taken over. They have killed our internets. We have no television. What are we going to do to entertain ourselves? And
Join the resistance? You're welcome.
all right.
Actually, that would in part be one of my answers, because I do love volunteering, and I don't do enough of it, in my opinion. I mean, I do work conventions, but, other things as well. Organizing people, things like that. I do enjoy that. That's probably one thing that I would do. The other thing that I would do is probably, if I had the money, and it would almost sort of kind of fall back into the main topic as well, I would go around the world and ride all the roller coasters. I love roller coasters.
That's actually on my mom's bucket list, too.
I actually joined a roller coaster club in order to overcome my fear of roller coasters, because it was just one of those things growing up. I was always afraid of them, but they looked awesome, and I was like, no, I'm going to beat this thing. So I joined a roller coaster club and went around, and through the magic of peer pressure, because I was there with all the roller coaster people, I went and I rode all the giant roller coasters. And when I was still living up in Cleveland, Cedar Point is the mecca of roller coasters, and they have huge ones. So I was able to break my fear of roller coasters. Now I love roller coasters, and it's also ironic too, because when you go around to other places, especially if you've been to Cedar Point many times, they have 400-foot roller coasters and 300-foot roller coasters, and their roller coasters are always ranked as among the best in the entire world. You go to someplace else and they talk about how awesome their giant roller coaster is, and it's a third of the size of, say, something like Millennium Force or Top Thrill Dragster, and you just kind of chuckle to yourself like, oh, how quaint, look at your little roller coaster. And they're like, it's so huge, like, oh, you haven't seen anything yet. So that's what, if I could not play my television and my electronic games, I would probably do a lot more organizing, and I would ride a lot more roller coasters.
Okay.
Not that I want to just butt in, just that's not what I want to do, but it just sort of, fell into it. So that's what I would do.
You're good. Bio, what about you?
Well, I think I've already said some of the things were hingent on time. I mean, does this also presume, so since the Robot Overlords won, that means there are no jobs other than
now that I'm
in the
thinking
mines
about
or
it, the Robot Overlords would probably enslave you in particular because you're the tech guy.
Yeah, I'm
so.
going to be stuck repairing them all the time. So
Yeah. Well, assuming that you escape for some reason and you find some extra time on your hands, what would you do? Besides hide.
I mean, I mentioned the language thing, so I think that would be interesting to take a look at. I mean, when I was in high school, I actually took Greek, and I took more of an older form, not a modern Greek, more like Alexander the Great kind of style. So it's kind of
Was it ancient Greek or Koine?
It was Koine, yeah.
Koine, okay, that's biblical Greek.
Well, yeah, that what's also around Alexander the Great period, kind of a Hellenization period.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that because it's that and Latin are in the sciences a lot. So I'd like to take something like Estonian. Estonian just when you hear the language, it has a certain beauty to it. So I mean, assuming I have the time and that's completely out of the equation, I think I would do that. I would learn a couple of languages, like maybe Russian or Estonian, and then maybe go back and look at something older.
Cool. Killer?
I'd probably. I think. I'd probably do some more of as everyone knows, I like firearms and stuff like that. Since I've written several articles, I'd probably focus more on doing competitions and reloading and other items like that. Maybe even start doing long distance shooting, because I always thought it was cool
Of the
to
robots.
exactly.
Yeah, reloading for the resistance. There you go.
Yes, exactly. Or maybe you could invent time travel to go back in time to stop the Robot Overlord takeover.
Whoa.
But then the robots find the time travel, so they send a robot back in time to stop the resistance.
And
Stop
then
me
it
if you've
turns
heard
out,
I'm thinking,
Darn you, Highlander.
And thus-
maybe create a robot that looks like a human, that kind of, yeah.
And thus
you
we
may
found
I should
have
write
out.
this
become the father
down. I
of
feel
your
like I have
mentor.
something here. I
think
have
you
something
do.
that I should write down. I think
Wait,
Hollywood would be interested in what I have
What
to
would
say
the
right
theme
now.
kind of sound? Would the theme kind of be
I
like?
don't.
dun, dun,
It sounds.
dun,
It's on the
dun,
tip
Yeah,
of my
no.
tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
I feel like this has been done, Highlander. I don't want to steal this from some author who's ever wrote this or anything. I could swear someone's done this before.
No,
You're
no,
obviously
no,
wrong.
That's silly. That's just silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I do more of that because there's a couple of places, me and a group of friends, guys, my dad works with it. I've kind of tagged along with them, but there's different ranges we go to that offer, little club matches and stuff like. I think I'd pretty much every weekend I'd go do that because there's about 3 or 4 ranges I could go to that are local for me. So I think I'd focus on that.
All right, so I'm noticing a theme here to your answers so far. So basically we have Bio has been enslaved by the robots to repair them because, they need somebody to do their bidding. Highlander, and he's going to learn, ancient languages because, the robots are going to be okay with that because, ancient languages would be okay. Highlander is going to spend his time riding roller coasters and organizing things like Killer.
The Resistance.
Like the Resistance that Killer is, practicing his long distance shooting for in order to save Bio from the Robot Overlords. So I'm sensing another fanfic coming into play. This is a beautiful thing.
Here's the question though: what if I'm happy with the Robot Overlords? I mean, apparently
Obviously
I have
you've been
time to do all the
brainwashed.
stuff.
Traitor!
I'm just saying, what if I suddenly have time to do the stuff I wanted to do? Apparently, because they took over. I'm
Okay.
just saying. I'm just saying this. I didn't have it before when I had the internet.
This actually segues into what my answer is, because I haven't given my answer yet. So that's a very good question. Bravo. So what I would be spending my time doing is catching up on the mounds and mounds and mounds of reading that I've been neglecting over the last few months. And a lot of that is around empowerment and self-help. So I could use that to break free from, the robot's, mindset on you that, things are awesome because you're enslaved, and help you rise to be the man that you were supposed to be. You can take down those robots and still be learning your languages and having your free time and doing whatever. You don't have to be a slave to the robots.
Baroness, are you going
Yes.
to be offering him a blue pill or a red pill?
You weren't supposed to tell him about that. Killer.
Sorry!
I would say no to both. No,
Yeah, exactly.
Not taking strange pills from someone, not even Lawrence Fishburne.
It's true. It's very true. Very true.
All right. I don't see anybody. I don't think. Oh, Olive is saying, I don't think a self-help book is going to destroy the Robot Overlords. I didn't say it was going to destroy the Robot Overlords. I said it was going to help him break free from his mindset that being enslaved was okay. That's
I'm trying to
what
think
I
of
said.
a better name for Robot Overlords. I'm thinking maybe like the Eliminator.
I'm thinking
I don't know.
Google, but that's
The
just me.
Eliminator.
The Destroyer.
Discontinuer. I don't know.
I was thinking more like our supreme
the
protectorate,
Abolisher.
you know?
I don't know. something
No,
like
see,
that.
that's exactly what they want you to think.
Some
Stop
sort
that.
of, kind of thing. It's a work in progress. I'm sure I'll come up with an adequate, great word for it. Yeah.
Okay. Or would it be a blue pill or a white and gold pill, as Nose is asked? Speaking of the dress.
I actually had a...
Yeah.
What color is the pill?
Wow.
Let's go on Twitter and rant about a stupid dress all night. That just sounds productive.
Oh God.
See, and this...
Oh.
Okay, just going a little bit more off topic. See, this is exactly why we don't have any time on our hands, is because we're busy, like, being on Twitter ranting
Yeah,
about what color
making fun
that
of
dress
stupid
is.
stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
So... Or in my case, looking at cat pictures. But you know what? I maintain that is necessary to my enhanced sanity. So, there you go. All right. So, as we wrap up this conversation for this evening, I actually had these all posted up there so I could see them and not have to look down from the camera. But, screw it. Whatever. Don't forget to check out all the other wonderful shows and content listed on our main website, RivalCastMedia.com. In addition to the articles, the stories, the news, the podcast devoted to everything revolving around gaming, and a lot of off-gaming things that we happen to be interested in as well. Right now, you can also participate in the 2015 WoW Podcaster Tournament of Epicness, run by our very own D2D, who I hope will be on our show again very soon. You can check that out under the tournament section at RivalCastMedia.com. Place your vote for your best WoW podcaster. They've got some great prizes as they go through the brackets tournament. So be sure to keep up on that news at RivalCastMedia.com. For more details, be sure to catch the next episode of WoW Uncensored this Monday night at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, right here on RivalCast Media Twitch channel. You can also check out our other live shows throughout the week. You can catch Highlander tomorrow night on the RivalCast at 9:30 Eastern. I'll be on Ghost in the Podcast again Sunday at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And then we've got some other great shows throughout the week as well, so be sure to check in regularly. We've usually got stuff going on each night, so be sure to stop in, join the conversation, and at the very least, stop by and be entertained. Next week, for On Tap, in honor of Friday the 13th, our very own Baron von Gosu will be joining us in studio to talk about different superstitions and other wonderful things going bump in the night. If you want to get in the conversation, again, I mentioned this earlier, tell us your superstitions by emailing us at ontap@rivalcastmedia.com. We'll talk about your answers in our conversation on the show. You can also weigh in each week's questions by following us again on Facebook, facebook.com/RivalCast, or on the Twitter, at RivalCastMedia. We post our questions there usually, Tuesday and Thursday. I think we were trying to get them done. Sometimes it's Wednesday and Friday, but, we're getting a little bit more consistent on there, so be on the lookout. That does it for tonight, plebeians. So, gentlemen, is there anything I'm missing?
Do you know the name of the term for fear of Friday the 13th?
The name what?
There's an actual name for the fear of Friday the 13th.
I'm going to botch the pronunciation on this, but triskaidekaphobia.
Triskaidekaphobia is fear of
yes.
the number 13.
Mm-hmm.
Frigatriskaidekaphobia is fear of Friday the 13th. And I feel very nerdy for knowing that, but that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Nerd! Shut up!
Hey, you know what?
We're all nerds here.
It ties into linguistics, which ties back to our conversation.
I'm a geek.
So we're
completely
excellent.
different thing.
Okay, fine. Geek, whatever.
Just joking with you.
Gonna mute both of you two in a minute. All right, that does it for tonight, plebeians. So thank you again for joining us. This evening, and again from everyone here at RivalCast Media. Cheers.